One. Hello and welcome. I am Exalite, and this is my podcast. Today I'd like to welcome moderator Maya. Everybody say hi to moderator Maya, and please be nice to her. My producer Jeremy, who's working very hard behind the scenes, and you might hear me have a one-sided conversation because I can hear Jeremy in my earpiece, and you cannot. And today, my co-host is my UK co-host, Robert Burns. Everybody say hi to Rob. And Rob, go ahead and say hi.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well. I'm ready for tonight.
I am too. I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be fun. Okay, so I've got a couple things to mention. This could be our last podcast directly from YouTube. I think we're going to try and switch over to Twitch next week. And we'll see how we like that and see how that goes. Also, you guys can leave comments in the comment section, but I might not be able to see them. And if there's something that needs to be talked about immediately, Maya can tell Jeremy, Jeremy can tell me, or we can have questions, wait and go ahead and save questions and do a question and answer period and discussion at the end of the podcast. Before we start talking about our topic today, which is urban legends and folklore, Rob and I would like to tell you a little bit of something about last week's podcast that you weren't aware of because it was happening in the background. So let me give you a little bit of background for my end, and then we're going to discuss what happened on Rob's end. Of course, Rob wasn't the co-host. It was Jory, but we had a conversation afterwards, and it's going to involve that. So while we were doing the podcast, Jory and I last week, they picked up Jory was talking about heavy breathing, hearing heavy breathing. And exactly when Jory was picking it up, Jeremy picked up heavy breathing somewhere on our communications. And my husband was here, and my dad was here. My dad had flown in, and they were listening, and they both heard it. And my husband jumped up. He ran into another room, which is where Jeremy and moderator Maya are, and mentioned that he thought it was cool that they did a sound effect at that exact time. And Jeremy told my husband that they hadn't done a sound effect, that they had caught heavy breathing on the line. Now, neither Jory or I heard the heavy breathing. It was just them hearing it. And at that exact time, I sent a text to Maya because I can communicate with Maya without everybody knowing about it. And I sent a text to her, and I said, help me, please. Please come help me, because my nose started just gushing blood all over. So they all came out and literally stared at me before anybody came to help me, because they were a little nervous about the timing about this, about the heavy breathing coming on over the headphones that we weren't hearing, and then my nose started bleeding. So also during that podcast, Jory had outside of his house in Arizona, because that's where he does the podcast from, had a very bad accident happened just outside of his house. And for those of you who listened, you could hear Jory's dog barking loudly at the end, and that was why. So moving on to where it involves Rob. So Rob, I was telling Rob about the podcast. We were chatting over Facebook, and I was telling him about the podcast. And the way we chat is we record a minute, and you send it, and then you talk back and forth like that.
On Messenger.
So on Messenger, yes. So yeah. Go ahead, Rob, and tell them the rest of this.
Well, I missed the podcast last week because of circumstances. So we were talking, and Tracy was filling me in about everything that had happened the night before, or early morning before, and telling me about a nosebleed and the heavy breathing. And I'd left a message. I started to feel a little bit uneasy for some reason, and I don't know why. And I think sort of Tracy was feeling the same way. I sent a message, and then I was waiting for Tracy's message to come back to me, and I listened. I thought I'd heard something in the message, so I listened back to it, and there was a voice, very, very loud voice. So when I left my next message for Tracy, I said, Tracy, before you say anything, you need to listen back to that message, because I think I'm going mad because I've heard this noise. Please tell me that you can hear it as well, and then I'll hand it back over to you, Tracy, and tell me what you heard.
Yeah. So earlier in our chat, sometimes I re-listen to what I sent because I want to see if it skips. Because when I'm listening to the podcast, sometimes I feel like my end of the stream will skip over a word, and I was trying to figure out if it was the internet. So I listened to this one part, and I heard what sounded like something go "Ruh," at one point. Rob had mentioned it. I thought, well, that was weird. And then we went on and we were talking. And then when he said, stop, listen to your recording, I knew immediately in my gut that what I had heard earlier wasn't a fluke, that something else was coming. And I re-listened to it, and there was a very distinct noise or growling sound coming right over my voice in the recording. And it was at that time that Rob and I decided that there was a very strange feeling in this conversation. We were talking about,
We both felt really, really strange and a little bit scared, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah, it was a little bit scary because it was scary. Okay, so while I was sending him a message back about this voice thing, I was recording, and a screen popped up and said that Rob was calling me. Now, he doesn't call me. We talk over the chat. That's how we talk. And it popped up and said that Rob was calling me. And in my recording to him, I said, oh, what's happening? What is this? Because I didn't know that you could even do that on Messenger. I said, what is this? What's happening? Rob, I think you pushed the wrong button. And I set my recording off, and then I canceled the phone call. And my recording never went through because it couldn't, because the phone call was coming at the same time. A couple seconds later, it happened again. And this time I answered, and it was Rob. And he said, are you trying to ring me? And I said, I didn't call you. You called me. And go ahead and tell him what you told me, Rob.
Well, someone delivered something to my house, so I wasn't even holding my phone. It was down, so I couldn't have pressed any button by mistake. It was just came up as though Tracy was trying to ring me, which I thought was really, really unusual, because like you said, we never do that. We never ring each other. We talk via leaving each other a message, which is probably a long-winded way of doing it, but that's the way we've got used to doing it. So I thought that you were trying to ring me for some reason, and you thought that I was trying to ring you, and it didn't match up about who was sending who or trying to ring who. And this happened just after we'd heard the voice, and we've talked in the interim about this, and it was almost as though, because we were talking about the voice or the growl or whatever sound it was, from that point on, because of the phone calls, we didn't talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We just completely went off subject.
Yeah, we ended up getting off the phone. And I took a screenshot of our chat, and I sent it to him and said, look, it says that I missed a phone call from you, and on my actual phone, it even said, which I saw later the next day because we decided at that point we needed to get off the phone. We needed to just stop talking because I was very, very, very uncomfortable. And Rob was feeling uncomfortable. It was unusual. It was heavy. And I don't scare easily. So if I'm uncomfortable about something that's happening, I try to use my gut instinct on that. And I knew that I needed to get off the phone. And the next morning, I got up, and on my phone, it showed where I had missed a phone call from Rob. And his end showed that he had missed a phone call from me. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there was a whole other thing going on behind the scenes of that podcast last week that was very scary, very frightening, very strange, and one of the strangest evenings I've ever had, and I've had several. And wouldn't you agree, Rob?
I would agree entirely, and I would be really interested, and I think you would as well, if anybody listening to this has got any similar sort of phone experiences like that, or if anybody hears anything on this podcast that we don't actually catch. I think we'd really appreciate any breathing, any voices, anything like that. Just flag it up to us if you can as soon as possible, so
Yeah.
we know I've got an idea of when it is.
Yeah, I would like that too. Okay, are you ready to move on to today's topic?
Yep.
Okay, so today's topic, everybody, is urban legends and folklore. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Rob and I each made our own choices about topics we wanted to talk about. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the same topic. And that'll be sort of a more lighthearted, well, you'll see. It's going to be fun. All right, so what I'm going to talk about, are you ready? Bigfoot. Bigfoot has got to be one of the largest urban legends. Classic. It's a classic urban legend, so I wanted to go ahead and talk about Bigfoot. So, and oddly enough, a lot of the Bigfoot history involves the state I grew up in and even the city I lived outside of. So, here we go. Let's talk about Bigfoot, Rob.
Yep.
Okay, so it's mostly a North American folklore. Sorry, guys. But as you know, lots of different countries have their version of a Bigfoot, a Yeti, Sasquatch, whatever they call it. And it seems to be that wherever locally the story around the world starts, that they always have a different name for this. So there isn't a general name for Bigfoot. There's hundreds of names for Bigfoot. But he is described as a hairy, upright, walking, ape-like being, and it's very large folklore in the Pacific Northwest, where I grew up. And they say particularly Washington State and British Columbia. I didn't know that British Columbia was considered part of the Northwest, but it's okay. And of course, a lot of people throughout the years have done a lot of hoaxes with it. So there's the one famous picture that everybody on the planet has probably seen, where Bigfoot is off behind in the woods, walking past some fallen trees, and I'm sure that you have that up right now, Jeremy. Do you? Yes. Okay. And I think that is the one that everybody knows best. Other ones have largely been debunked. But I'm going to read something here. The creature has inspired numerous commercial ventures and hoaxes. Folklorists trace the figure of Bigfoot to a combination of I I'm not drinking, I swear. A combination of factors and sources, including folklore surrounding the European wild man figure and the folklore beliefs among Native Americans. And then this says, and a cultural increase in environmental concerns, which I think is, I'm going to just put my opinion in here right now. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think that anybody says we need to worry about global warming because it could affect Bigfoot. But, whatever. And then it goes on to talk about this. Most cultures have accounts of human-like giants in their folk history, expressing a need for some larger-than-life creature. Each language has its own name for this creature. Many names mean something along the lines of wild man or hairy man, and it's generally believed that he is not evil or intent on harming because, most people just see him running away, so he doesn't seem like he wants to have interaction with humans particularly. But the one part I wanted to tell you guys about is this one. Some regional versions tell of a more threatening creature. And it talks about an Indian tribe, and I don't want to butcher this name, please. I'm sorry if this name is butchered. It talks about this Indian tribe called Kui-Yai. And it's actually based on this nocturnal race. And this is based in Native American folklore. So this nocturnal race existed, and they were supposed to live on the peaks of Mount St. Helens in Washington State, which is where I'm from. And children were warned against saying the name of this creature because the monster could hear them say the name and would come into their villages and take somebody away and kill them. In 1847, a man named Paul Kane reported these stories by the Indians and about the Skookums, which is a race of cannibalistic wild men. And for them, this Bigfoot folklore was that he was very menacing, very scary, and would kill them. But it wasn't just one beast, it was several. It was a tribe of them. And then in 1840, a reverend whose name was Elkin Walker, he was a Protestant missionary. He recorded stories of giants living among Indians near Spokane, Washington, which is where I was born and raised. The Indians said that these giants lived on and around the peaks of a nearby mountain and stole salmon from fishermen nets. Well, I want to tell you that in Spokane, there is a large mountain, and it's called, not surprisingly, Mount Spokane. I lived at the base of this mountain, grew up there at the base of this mountain, spent a lot of time on this mountain, and I never heard this. And I think it's really strange that you can grow up in a place and never hear this type of a folklore. Now, I never had an experience with a Bigfoot or anything of that type, but oddly enough, I had neighbors across the street, and our cats, we had outdoor cats because they were for mice hunting. And our cats and dogs would go missing, and my neighbor across the street would always make comments about it being Bigfoot. My parents always said they were coyotes. They would say, my pets went to go live with a pack of coyotes. Yeah. But I know. They went to go live with the coyotes, that kitten. They'll be fine. And but my neighbor would always make comments that it was Bigfoot, which we always thought was odd. But now I can see that they must have known about this story, which is really interesting to me. So the name Bigfoot was first recorded by Americans in the late 19th century. There was a chief whose name was Bigfoot, and he was a well-known Lakota leader who lived during the Wounded Knee Massacre. Now, what they did was there was two very, very large bears in the area. And when this chief passed away, they called these bears Bigfoot. And a lot of people believe, historians believe, that this is where the term Bigfoot came in, because these bears would kill a dozen sheep and would be seen, carrying and killing elk. And because they were called Bigfoot, historians believe that that's where the legends came from, was this big bear idea. And if I can promo another one of our videos real quick, Rob and I did a video on people who go missing in national parks. And I did a story on one of the strangest missing national park story. And it involved a child. So this child's name was Dennis Martin. Dennis Martin was with his family, and they were in the Smoky Mountains. And he was 6 years old. Him and his siblings and some friends they had met went to go play hide and go seek. And 6-year-old Dennis was never seen again. A little ways over in camp, another child, 6 years old, started screaming and saying that he saw a bear man. And that this bear man had a child slung over his back. Now, if that alone is odd enough, but I want to tell you something. There was a search party called in. They called in the FBI, the U.S. Armed Special Forces, the police, and when they went out to look for Dennis, they were all armed. Later on, a former FBI and Special Forces member made a comment about this search, and I want to read this comment because it's very interesting, because I'm not one to particularly believe in a Bigfoot, but I'm also not saying that there's no Bigfoot. But this particular statement by this U.S. Special Forces agent makes me wonder what the government thinks about Bigfoot. So I'm going to read this to you. His name was Harold Cleveland. Like I said, he was a member of the U.S. Special Forces. He said, "Our special forces are never," and that's capitalized, "called to assist a civilian operation. That falls to the local National Guard, and it has to be approved by the state governor. The fact that they were armed as well is another huge no-no. During my command and every other mission I was ever on or aware of, we were not," and that's capitalized, "allowed by federal protocol to carry a weapon on a search mission." He said, "Something is very wrong with this missing kid scenario. I've done research on this case both while on active duty and after my retirement. The inside facts of this case depict a frightening investigation. The bottom line is that searching started within a few minutes, just a few minutes, bringing in the special forces, the FBI, the police, within minutes, which is, I would say, impossible. It seems to me like they had some knowledge of something in the area beforehand." Where was I? And it lasted for 3 months. This search for this child lasted for 3 months, with every resource imaginable being deployed. He goes on to say, "Don't even start with the terrain was difficult, holes and caves, cliffs, creeks, etc. Our special troops can find almost anything, anytime, in any capitalized terrain. We have the highest technology available worldwide, and it easily is the best training and real-world wartime and mission-specific experience that the normal civilian populace can scarcely imagine. After studying this case, the fact that no trace," and that's capitalized, "of the boy was ever found is mind-boggling. The Green Berets that were tasked in this search were there for a specific reason. They were armed for a specific reason. I can't and won't say why because my oath documents won't allow it, but I will remind you of these facts. Nationwide, there have only been 4 occasions in the history of the Special Forces, the history, where they were brought in on a civilian missing case. 2 of those involved armed perpetrators. The other 2 were this young boy's case and another case similar to it 3 years later in the same Smoky Mountain range. This is out of thousands of missing cases since the early 60s when the special troops were born. So that alone makes me wonder, what were they looking for? Why were they armed? What was so dangerous that they knew they had to go out there fully armed to the teeth? And was it a creature like Bigfoot?
Can I ask you a question quickly?
Yes.
I have seen on TV, on various documentaries about Bigfoot, they have put out like a poster for advertising the national parks and all the animals that are out there. And they spent thousands and thousands of dollars on these posters, and it's got a picture of Bigfoot on it, or Sasquatch.
Right.
And you can research that. I mean, I'm not just making this up. They have a picture of Sasquatch and where the sightings have been of Sasquatch and whereabouts in the country that people have allegedly seen Bigfoot. So why would the United States government spend money on something that doesn't exist?
Right. That's a good question. Yeah, I can tell you this. After doing the research I've done on U.S. national parks and this particular missing child situation and that man's statement, I would think twice about camping in a national park. It's whatever they went to, especially in the Smoky Mountain range, because whatever they were looking for, they knew was dangerous. They knew that, right? They weren't just looking for a 6-year-old. You don't need to be armed to the teeth with every kind of weapon possible to look for a 6-year-old. Even if you think you might come up against a bear while you're out there, you still don't need every kind of weapon you can imagine. And that it's at that point that I started to go, I don't know, maybe I'm going to lean towards maybe there is something out there that we're not supposed to really know about, but the government finds very dangerous.
I believe in Bigfoot. I think there is something.
Do you?
Yeah. Well, Tracy, you touched on it before. How can people from all around the world, from all different cultures, from all different places, have either the Yeti, the skunk ape, the soldiers that were in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War? They reported seeing a large bipedal creature from obviously around Russia in the what was it called? The students, the hiking is it day toll? I can't think what it's called now. The kids that went missing and they found the bodies all ripped apart in the middle of oh gosh, that's going to bug me all night now. But anyway,
is that the one where they found that their tent had been ripped?
Yeah, they ripped from the inside.
Yes, ripped from the inside. Yes, that's what it is.
And the last photograph they managed to take, once they had the films, what they called developed. There was one picture of this huge, large black figure standing out, looking out from a tree, and they were able to guess the size by the size of the tree and the distance they were. And this thing was nearly 8 foot tall.
Well, those kids in that tent left half naked because they had been
Yeah, they
sleeping,
were. Yeah,
and they had tried to claw their way up a tree.
yeah.
So that's an interesting idea that could have been why. That's scary. Yeah, because they clawed from the inside out and they were found all scattered apart.
Yeah.
That's, I wonder.
A couple of them, they said that the bones were so badly broken that it's like they were hit by a big lorry, an articulated lorry. They all the bones in the body were broke, or they'd been taken up in the sky and dropped from a very high altitude and hit the floor.
Hmm.
Tongues were missing, their eyes were missing. It's just crazy.
Wow. That I hadn't really put those two together. That's very interesting.
And the local tribe, or the Eskimos or whatever they're called, they tried to warn the 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 kids, the hikers, and they were all experienced hikers. They weren't just. It wasn't the first time they'd ever done it. They were warned not to go to this certain place, and they just thought that they were messing around, these local Eskimos. And then because one of the guys had to come home, he got poorly and had to come back, and he
Hmm.
survived. And so up to a certain point, he was able to give, you know, um, tell what had happened, and he can confirm that the local people said, look, you don't want to be going to this place. It's got some called something like Death Valley or something, or it's got death in it. So I probably wouldn't have gone anyway because there's
Yeah. Yes. I think that's
Death Valley.
smart.
Okay, I'll go somewhere that's not called Death Valley.
Exactly. I want to go somewhere called Happily Living Valley.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's
Huh.
stories from all how. Obviously, the point of what we're saying is the cave paintings and it from Australia as well. How can all these cultures know this before we were able to? I know the world is very small now. We can jump on a plane. You can be in England or you can be in Australia within
Right.
a few.
Now it is.
Yeah, but all them years ago, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. But they've got the same. They all have said the same thing. So how can it not be? How can there be no substance to this legend?
Right. I agree. Oh, by the way, did you hear Jeremy, Rob?
Yeah, I was a bit worried.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought
Yes.
I was hearing things again.
No. You heard what he said?
No, it was a whisper.
Okay. Can you tell him again, Jeremy?
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, I
Okay.
understand.
Yes, I agree. I think that if all these cultures from around the world completely unable to communicate with each other, they all come up with this same creature, the same description, that it has to be something. And Jane Goodall, who of course is famous with working with apes and everything, she was even quoted as saying that she believes that there is a Bigfoot and that she would, of course, really, really love to see one. I wouldn't, but she can if she would like to. But you have to note that also there has never been a Bigfoot body found, but there's also a hypothesis that they take care of their dead, that they remove their bodies and do whatever they do with them, and so that we might not ever find a body found, especially if they dug it deep into the ground or and buried it, or I don't know, whatever they would do. Maybe they eat it. I don't know.
Yeah,
But with sightings from around the world, starting back, a couple hundred years ago, at least. I think
But
you have to put some credence.
They have found skeletons and fossils of a. Pardon?
Mm-hmm.
Of
Yes,
an
they
ape.
found a huge, large jaw of an ape-like creature.
Yeah, that would have stood about 7 or 8 foot tall. And they think from looking at the skeletal remains that it stood upright. And there is a chain of thought that could this have not gone? Could it be one of those things that didn't go extinct and it's just hiding out? And when it is seen and it's a Bigfoot, and that's what Bigfoot is. It's this huge, huge ape type creature that is prehistoric but didn't die out.
Well, and especially in things like national parks, there's millions and millions of acres of parklands, and in other countries, millions and millions of acres of thickly treed park areas, where I would assume something could very well live out there with the amount of sightings compared to how much time has passed and how much area there is. I think it's very easy to assume that they could live out there and really never be seen or rarely be seen.
See, it's really difficult when I don't know if there's anyone listening. I hope there is who live in the UK, for us to comprehend how big the US is. I mean, you've got some states that are bigger than the UK, and we can't comprehend that you could go out into the middle of nowhere and not see a person for weeks and weeks. That that isn't from the top of Scotland to the bottom of England. It's not even 1,000 miles. It's
really
no, it's about 800 and something miles, I think. But we can't get our heads around that you have got. It's like Australia. The size of your country. We think European people, British people think that, well, yeah, if one died, you'd see it. I mean, they're finding new species all the time. They found this huge antelope that they thought was extinct a couple of years ago, living out in Africa somewhere. And, that's doing really, really well. And it's just the fact that it kept out of the way of humans.
Right. Yeah, well, okay, so there's 2 other people from the UK watching the stream right now. And, in Texas alone, and I live in Texas right now, 800 miles. I guess I could drive through Texas, and maybe not hit anything else, so yeah, there's millions and millions and literally millions. I have it in a story somewhere. I have it written down somewhere how many millions of acres there are. Let me check real fast. Hold on, I'm sorry. I can't find it. I have my story up and I was sure I had it.
Where in the US?
I got it. All right. 84 million acres of woods and desert.
That's
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
In 84 million acres of preserved land, and that doesn't even count state parks.
It doesn't.
You could no, that's federal parks. You could get pretty lost pretty fast and never have somebody see you again. If you were a Yeti or Bigfoot, you could live out there, I think, pretty safely, I would assume.
That's crazy. Is it down in where is it? Is it where all the swamps are? Is that Florida? Or is that
well, that is the bottom of Texas, Louisiana, Florida. Yeah.
Because they have the skunk ape, I think, from down there.
Yeah.
Which isn't it's thought to be not as big. It's about 6.5 foot tall, but
Mhm.
smells really bad. They call it the skunk
Yeah,
ape, presumably. A lot of
right.
thought went into that. But,
Yeah,
sorry.
for years they were like, I don't know what to call something that smells like a skunk. I don't know. A skunk ape? Okay, so if does anybody have any questions about, I see you guys are chatting it up about, especially about the those kids that, what's it called, the Devlov Pass?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Um, I believe I did a story about that.
Yeah,
Um,
you did.
uh, so the chat's talking a lot about that, and that's good. Do you
There's
want
American.
to do one of your stories? I am excited. I have to tell you, I'm excited about your stories because I'm going to get to learn something too. And this will be fun.
Okay, right. We're going to talk about vampires.
Let's do. I want to tell you guys that are listening. I love vampires. I love everything there is about vampires. I I was I was telling Rob that I would love to put a vampire in every story I write. I was telling Jeremy that if I would love to just, like, hey, there was a guy on a lake and he was fishing and he pulled up a vampire. Just everything I would love to put a vampire in. So this is one of my favorite topics. I'm so glad we're doing this. Okay, go ahead.
I hope this is good now.
Yeah, it'll be a real letdown if you say, and there's no such thing as vampires. Let's go.
Okay, right. I have tried to do. We don't really have urban legends as such in the UK, so I've tried to look at folklore and things like that. And one of the main and probably the most well known is Bram Stoker's Dracula, who
Mm-hmm.
Bram Stoker was he was Irish Bram Stoker, and he wrote the story of Dracula. And
Mm-hmm.
Dracula lives in Transylvania in the Eastern Europe. Now, there is some truth to if Dracula was a real person, but if you go back to the 15th century, there was a gentleman called Vlad Tepes, and maybe better known as Vlad the Impaler, because he felt that, put it this way, if you pissed off Vlad, you were in trouble. Some of the things he liked to do, I mean, it was disembowelment, which isn't fun, decapitation, which probably wouldn't be your best day, and then try and be professional. Stop laughing at me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to know how you knew that disembowelment wasn't fun.
That's not for this podcast.
Oh, okay. Okay, a different one.
He also liked, on a Sunday before his dinner, boiling or skinning his victims alive, which doesn't sound like it could be your best day if that happened to you. But his preferred method of torture this would have been a torture because you wouldn't die. From what I've read, I have no experience of this. From what I have read, it did not kill you straight away. He liked to impale his enemies with a big stake, which basically went in one end and came out the other. And he was supposedly, if you believe the figures, he did this to 20,000 people, men, women, and children.
Wow.
I think Vlad had some psychological problems, to be honest. And I think if he was
Yeah.
living, probably would need to see a psychiatrist. But
Maybe some medication.
yeah, I think medication definitely. But joking aside, still to this day in Eastern Europe, if in the villages and in the little towns, if they have an unknown sickness or if something happens and they can't explain it, they will dig they will dig a person up if they think they believe in vampires, and they will take the head away. They will cut the head off, put the head between the legs, and put nails in the hands and in the mouth.
So do they think that the dead person is possibly a vampire?
They think that the dead person is possibly a vampire. There have
Wow.
been cases, and this is hearsay, that they have dug a supposed vampire, a person or persons that they think are vampires, maybe 6 months after they've actually been buried, and there is no
Decomposition. Decomposition.
Yeah, but when people die, this is one of the things that I've seen, and I've read this on numerous occasions. When you die, your gums recede and your nails carry on growing. So when they have dug these people up, because they look like they've got fangs and their nails have grown, they just assume that they are vampires. And it's just the natural way that a body will, what happens to a body when you die.
Right.
That being said, though, the problem with vampires is Hollywood. Hollywood has made these cuddly Twilight vampires that are all lovely, and you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and all the rest of it. I do believe in vampires, but not that version of vampires.
Okay.
I believe, and the next part of this is what I believe.
Okay.
Some people are probably going to think that I am completely gone crazy, but a lot of people think around the world that the first vampire was Judas Iscariot. And for anybody who doesn't know who Judas is, he was one of Jesus's disciples, the one that betrayed Jesus. And his punishment for betraying Jesus, he was said to never die. He would never be able to walk in the sunshine. And Judas got paid 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus Christ. And that is why vampires are supposedly allergic or can't go anywhere near silver. And also, Jesus was crucified on a cross, and that is why vampires are supposed to be afraid and scared of a cross, and it will ward off a vampire.
See, when you first told me that, well, even now, I think that is such a fascinating theory. It makes complete sense. I think that is, I love that. I love that connection. For some reason, that really strikes a chord with me because I don't know, that makes it more frightening to me.
Well, I think it makes more sense in the fact that it's giving people examples of why. I mean, if you take away the Judas thing and forget that I said that, why are vampires afraid of the crosses? Why are they afraid of silver? Why can't they come out in the daytime? It's okay saying all these things, but there are no reasons to that. I think with the Judas one, it gives you reasons, and it gives you, that is his punishment, that he's not even allowed to go to hell. He has to walk the earth forever. But
Wow.
it depends if you're religious or not, and whether you're open to that kind of thing, if you would believe it or not. But I do believe that.
That's interesting. I really think that's fascinating. So do you think there's more than one then? Or do you think there's one and it's Judas?
I think there's more than one. And I watched. See, this is another problem. I watched a documentary, and I have to apologise, Tracy. It was an American lady living in America, and
Mm-hmm.
she was living her life as a vampire, and she would invite people in,
Why are
friends
you
of hers,
apologizing to me about this?
because I don't want to make out that all Americans are lunatics.
Well, there's a good percentage. Okay, go ahead.
And she would basically, she had a little knife, and she would cut their neck, and she would sit there and drink their blood for an hour or
Ah,
so. Now she said the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. She felt it was okay because she decided that she would make them have HIV, hepatitis, and all that test to make sure that they didn't have any blood. They didn't have any bloodborne diseases. Now, okay, that's fair enough. But you're drinking people's blood, you stupid get. What does it matter whether they've got a bloodborne disease? You're drinking the blood. Don't drink the blood. Don't drink the blood, and
yeah,
you won't have to worry.
yeah. Oh my
She is
gosh.
ridiculous. And she said there's loads of people like this who want to be vampires. I don't know. Just ridiculous.
That's crazy. You know what I think that is, though? Okay, for a couple things. First off, I feel like that might be some sort of a mental illness. And also, there's this thing called pica, and it's when you're anemic and you crave really weird things. You know, we had that. We have in America, we have the show called My Strange Addiction, and
Oh,
you
yeah,
crave,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, really weird things. Well, I myself am very anemic, and I have pica. So one of the very normal things you crave is
What?
like trees and dirt. Now I don't eat dirt, nor do I eat trees, but not on Wednesdays. I'll just
I've
say that.
told you I'm not sending you any blood.
Oh, come on now, Rob. I was getting to the point where I was going to ask. But maybe her body's craving iron, and that's what goes through her brain is how to get iron. You know what I mean?
Well, they do it in
Maybe.
tablet form. Well, they do what they do here. They do in this country.
That's true, but I can't believe I'm going to defend this. But once you get pica, you're too far along for the tablets to work. So like I have to get iron transfusions.
Right.
And okay, every time I have a podcast with you, I go off on something really weird and personal about myself. So I suppose we should not change that. And I'll tell you that I crave ice. I mean, ice so badly, and it's medically. There's all kinds of medical stuff to back this up. And what your body does is, for some reason, the ice soothes this craving. But for the dirt factor, something that tastes like dirt, because I'm not going to go out and eat dirt. I eat radishes because to me radishes taste like dirt, and I can go to town on radishes. And that's always, always, always when I know I need iron transfusions. When I start craving weird stuff like that, like people chew on pencils to get the wood taste. I eat radishes. I think that's better than lead. Call me crazy, but I wonder if maybe she's so far down into pica that she's craving that blood. Because I feel like I could take a chunk out of a cow's ass sometimes when I am really, really bad. So maybe she has pica. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm just trying to help this poor lady out. I don't know. Now you do think that all Americans are crazy.
No, but I have watched a documentary about. It's funny you mentioned that lady with the gorillas. Gorillas will go to when there's something lacking in the diet. They
Mm-hmm.
go to this certain rock face, and they break pieces of rock off, and they eat the
Yes.
rock because of the minerals in
Yes.
the rock. Their bodies crave that mineral.
Yes,
But,
that is the exact same concept. Yes. That is exactly it, except for our bodies, because we are um, not living out in the woods, not using our basic instincts. Our bodies think what would have minerals in it. So we crave, like I crave fish, and I'm allergic to fish. So I do crave things that would have minerals in it. But clay, it's very, very, very southern in this country that pregnant women eat clay, and clay is full of minerals.
yeah.
A lot of times, pregnant women just eat clay just to eat it because it's such an old wives' tale that they will eat clay because their mothers and their mothers and their mothers and their mothers have told them that it's good for their bodies when they're pregnant, and it's because of the minerals in it. So I don't know how we got off on another medical topic. I told you I'd
So
find one.
if you eat a lot of clay, when
Hmm.
you go to the toilet, do you get like a cup and saucer?
Yes, how did you know? Okay.
I don't believe
So
it.
rude. That's so rude.
I don't believe I just said that to everybody. I'm sorry. I apologise to everybody for saying I'm an idiot. I'm from the UK. I'm an idiot.
Okay. Um, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about vampires?
I think that's everything. Everything that anyone ever wanted to know and more.
And a lot more. So we'll end on pooping out cups and saucers. That wraps up vampires. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go to a very classic American urban legend. And this is anybody in America who's ever gone to a sleepover or sat around a campfire is going to know the story of the hook. And this is the way the story goes in some kind of version. Two teenagers, they go out somewhere in the middle of the woods and they go out there to park. They start hearing a scratching noise. And over the radio, there's an announcement that some crazy man has escaped the mental ward or prison. And there's a search out for him. And they ignore it because they're teenagers in a car. And finally, the scratching on the top of the car starts to scare the girl a little bit. And she asks if they can leave and go somewhere else. And they go to start the car. The car won't start. So the boy bravely goes to walk into town to find help with the car, whether it's usually they need gas or the engine won't start, so they need a jump. It's always some version of that. He leaves the girl alone in the car, and she waits there all night. It becomes daylight. She's found. When she gets out of the car, she finds her boyfriend hanging from this hook that this man who had escaped from this mental institution was missing an arm, and it was his hook. Now we've all heard this. Everybody. If you're an American, have you heard this story? Because I would imagine that everybody has. Well, what fascinates me is that the actual point of this story has nothing to do with a murderer. It has everything to do with scaring teenage girls from going to make out in cars with boys. And the story has been told since there were cars and probably covered wagons. It's a morality story. Yet we sit there and we tell it around campfires and, at sleepovers. And that is one of my favorite, very basic, very, very classic United States urban legend that we all tell our kids. Even now, we'll tell our kids. And I don't think it stopped probably anybody from going into a parked car, would be my guess.
Well, put it this way, I've got 2 daughters and I've just been out and bought a hook.
That's a good
Just
idea.
to reinforce it, yeah. Just to reinforce the thing.
You should just every once in a while scratch it on their bedroom door.
Yeah, that's the one. On the window. On the window outside at night.
Yeah, you should do that. That's a good parenting idea. Okay. Would you like to tell us about the Lockness Monster?
Can I just ask you a quick question?
I'm not going to tell you if I ever parked in a car.
No, not that. I've heard that story, but I've heard another one as well that's an urban legend. The one where the young girl stops to get some petrol, and there's a weird guy who's selling the petrol station. He's in the petrol station, and she gets scared and runs out and gets in a car, and he chases after her, and he's trying to shout at her, and she thinks he's after her. She thinks he's after her, so he gets in his car and he's trying to flash her and everything, and she's scared to death. And
yes,
there's someone in a boot. There's someone in the back of a car that sneaked in a car, and he's trying to warn her.
Yes.
Is that the?
Yes. That's not the same story, but that is a very, very common urban legend here as well. And she keeps driving away from him, and the guy keeps chasing her, and she thinks he's trying to get her, and the guy in the back. Well, we have it that he's in the back seat. That she looks in the rearview mirror and she sees a man in the back seat, and he kills her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very common here. That's one of my favorites too.
Right.
It's literally called The Man in the Back Seat. No, that's fine, because I was actually going to talk about that one. So that was good, because it's literally called The Man in the Back Seat. That took a lot of thinking. But that's what they ended up with.
Okay. Do you want me to do my Loch Ness story?
Yes, please.
My Loch Ness story, the folklore about Loch Ness. Okay. Yes. In the 6th century, most of the UK hadn't become a Christian country yet. And there was lots of different saints going around the United Kingdom as it is now, trying to convert the country to Christianity. Now, Loch Ness is up near Inverness in Scotland, and it's a huge, long loch, which basically means lake. And I think it's about 1.5 miles wide, but it's really, really long. And the locals were really, really scared of the loch, and they didn't allow any of the children to go swimming in the loch or anything like that. And one day, the Saint Columba was up in this kind of pattern. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was me. Sorry. That was my computer.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So he was up there trying to convert them to Christianity, and he wasn't having very much luck. So he was wandering down by the loch with some of his friends, some of his friends, and they were a big group of people, and they were burying a gentleman, and he asked what had happened, and they said that he had died. He'd been attacked by a monster that lives in the loch. So anyway, he said that he will get rid of the monster. So he sent one of his aides into the water, and he got it to about sort of chest deep, and this monster started to come out of the water, which is what we know today as a Loch Ness Monster. St. Columba walked into the water, and he held up a cross, a crucifix, and he told the monster, "You are not ever allowed to come out of the water, and you are not ever allowed to attack another person." And the monster turned around and scared, and it disappeared, and was never seen. Wasn't seen for a long time. This, when the locals saw this, they all converted to Christianity because they couldn't believe how much power this St. Columba had just by showing the cross. So that is where the beginnings of the Loch Ness Monster come from.
Mm-hmm.
It's been seen lots and lots of times. There was a famous picture, like there was a famous picture of Bigfoot of the Loch Ness Monster by a surgeon. I think it was a surgeon's. It's called the surgeon's photo. That was proved to be a hoax. But there have
It
been
was?
lots of, yeah, it was the perspective was it was only small. It was a cork one,
Mm-hmm.
just the head and shoulders. It was proved to
Mm-hmm.
be. It looked like it was huge in the middle of the loch, but actually it was tiny. And he just managed to get the perspective of the camera and
Oh.
just a small picture. But there's been lots and lots of sightings and photographs that can't be explained. The one I find the most intriguing is it's looking down on the loch, and on the hillside above there is like a set of cottages, and it's a sunny day, and there's this creature in the water, and they try to say it's a reflection of the cottages. They have done, these photography experts have done lots of different tests and tried to disprove this picture, and they can't. They they don't know. They can't explain it. There have been lots and lots of. It's very deep, Loch Ness, and it's got lots of caves around under the water inside. But it does lead to the sea. And some people think that it could be a basking shark, that a big, huge basking shark, which is coming in and is swimming into the loch and spending some time in the loch, then going back out into sea. And there was another big, big shark that I cannot remember the name of, which is huge. It's not like a great white or anything. It's not dangerous to people, but yeah, there was lots and lots of sightings where it's been crossing the road and it's run across the road, because the road that runs alongside Loch Ness is quite recent. It's in the last sort of 30 or 40 years that this has, because you couldn't get anywhere near the loch unless you were walking. So obviously with the introduction of the road, it's given obviously people more chance of more sightings.
Right.
And there
Well,
is
could you
actually,
tell me, what does the picture look like of the one that's taken from above? What does that one look like?
it's a colour picture. It's a
Uh-huh.
beautiful day. It's looking down on the loch, and then opposite, up on a hill, there's some whites and I can't remember the colour, white and black cottages, about four, I think. And it looks like, at first glances, it looks like it could be a reflection into the water of the cottages, but it doesn't match up. It just doesn't match up to the cottages. But
Okay.
I'll try and find it for you, and obviously it's not going to do any good now, but I'll try and find it for you, and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
But you've got,
Interesting.
is it Lake Champlain or Cham something or other in
Yeah,
America?
yeah,
You've got a similar.
yeah.
Um,
Yep, but it's not very popular. I
they
mean,
think it.
it's what?
They the people that believe in the monster, they think it could be I'm going to say this wrong now. Plesiosaur that could be left over
Right.
from the Ice Age, and I could sort of get behind that. I mean, we talked about this earlier. I think there is something in the loch. I definitely think there is something in the loch.
Right.
But what it is, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's something in there. And can you for the Americans who are here, can you just describe how the loch looks? Because I think that from the pictures we see, we don't really understand what the size of this loch is.
Well, as you travel north up into Scotland, Scotland is very, very rural. There's not very much up there at all. And you go up to the top, up near the Kirrangore Mountains, where it's so snowy. And the lock means lake, basically. I think it's about 10 miles long, and it's about 1.5 miles wide at its widest point. So it's like a long strip that runs right across, nearly cutting Scotland in half, really. But it's really, really long, and it's really, really cold as well. That's which doesn't help divers when they have been divers in there, and it's very, very silty as well, so you can't really see anything when you do scuba dive. Because I know your husband likes to scuba dive, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
You can't see your hand in front of your face. There have been pictures of what looks like fins, big, huge fins, but they're never very, very clear because it's so silty, the water.
Right. Do you think it's possible that it's some sort of a huge eel or a snake or something? Because if it was a shark, what is sticking out of the water that people see? That looks like a neck.
Well, there's a program that we have over here, and it's a really famous fisherman called Jeremy Wade, and he looked at the legend of Loch Ness, and he was trying to look at it from a point of view of not necessarily disproving it, but proving there is something that is in the loch. And this basking shark, it doesn't have a stick-up type fin like great white or a bull shark or things like that. It is quite. It doesn't sit up in the water as much. It sort of lies. It's quite floppy. So that could be mistaken for something. But as far as the snake is concerned, I think it would be too cold. Eels as well. We don't have any big eels really in the United Kingdom because it's really, really cold.
Right.
And they don't think there's a lot of fish in there. See, that's another argument. They don't think there's enough fish in there to be able to feed a huge. Well, it'd have to be a family of plesiosaurs. But if they are able to get out to the sea, and there's also a chain of thought that the tunnel system that runs underneath the loch, leading to other lochs, it's all interconnected. So it could be going from loch to feed. And that's why people are only seeing it every now and again, because everything's focused on Loch Ness. There's even a website, a web camera that's focused. Well, there's a couple actually that shine down on the loch all the time, so you can go on and basically sit and watch the loch wherever you are in the world. And if you see anything, but that's a bit like watching paint dry, isn't it?
Not if you see something.
Not if you see, yeah, but obviously that's a big thing.
It's going to take a minute, though. So you do believe that there is something in there?
I do believe there is something in there, but I don't know what it is. I wouldn't like to put my. I would go with the shark theory more though, than the monster theory.
Well, they've gone over it with infrared and submarines and stuff, haven't they?
Oh, they've spent hundreds of thousands of pounds going backwards and forwards and not radars, the scanning the bottom and trying to find it. But they have actually found some big. What is radar called when it's underwater? I can't think what it's called.
Sonar.
Sonar. They have found like huge masses in the water on sonar, but they can't see anything down there because it's so dark. Then really hard to say. Well, it's this or it's that or it's the other.
Right.
But I think it's just one of them.
It's really hard when the water is silty. if you're down there in a submarine, for example, and your visibility is only 3 feet, you're more likely to run into it than to see it.
Yeah. I think that's what happened with the picture. There's a picture of a fin, and I think it was just taken by chance, and it's definitely a fin, and they can make, with the photograph, they can change the colour, can't they, and look at it as a negative and things like that. There is something there, but they don't know what it is. They don't know what it is.
Okay. And I need to tell you something. We are under a tornado watch right now. So if I have to go, I'm going to have to go. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. It's just fair warning. It's that time of year. So Joanne is saying that her son says it's a shark of, I don't know how to pronounce this, Groandland. Groundland?
Greenland shark.
Oh, okay. I'm pronouncing it like an American. Sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah, they discovered. I can't speak. They have just a few years ago discovered a new shark, and it was thought to be extinct. It's a big bugger, and it lives around Scandinavia, Greenland, and that sort of area, top of Scotland, that sort of area of Europe, and yeah, there was some thinking that it could be one of these, because they do grow quite big. You know, you look at 12 to 15, 16 foot.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, should we move on to the next topic?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to talk about chupacabras. All right. So I was disappointed when I looked up the history of chupacabras, and, well, you'll find out why. So, because I really wanted there to be chupacabras. I really do. So I'm going to read this. The first reported attack that was eventually attributed to the creatures occurred in March of 1995 in Puerto Rico. That's a very, I don't know why I thought it went back so much farther than that. But it's only 1995. 8 sheep were discovered dead, each with 3 puncture wounds in the chest area and completely drained of blood. A few months later, in August, an eyewitness reported seeing the creature again in Puerto Rico, and as many as 150 farm animals and pets were reportedly killed. Now, in 1975, there was a similar killing, and it was attributed to something called El Vampiro de Mocha. El Vampiro de Mocha, the Vampire of Mocha, which was the town that they saw it in. So they initially thought that the killings were committed by a satanic cult. That was, which, you know, I guess if you're killing animals and draining blood, I can see why that would be a conclusion. But they said that the bodies were losing blood through a series of small circular incisions and being drained of the blood. So, given that case, I could also see why they were thinking, satanic, or, possibly some kind of a vampire wanting to drink the blood. But after a 5-year investigation, it was concluded, and this is where it gets upsetting to me. It was concluded that the description given by the original eyewitness in Puerto Rico was based on the creature called Syl in the science fiction horror film Species, which was apparently supposed to be, it was based in Puerto Rico, and the Puerto Ricans thought that it was like a documentary, that it was a true story of what was happening in Puerto Rico, And then the stories started being reported like tenfold, that people were seeing the Chupacabra and describing it exactly like that creature in the movie that they thought was a real story. And that's disappointing to me. It turns out that what they thought is the Chupacabra is a species of a dog. And it's related to dingoes and foxes and dogs, obviously, and any sort of a dog type animal. And there's no Chupacabra. And you said that you heard that it was also looked like an alien. And when I was looking it up, there was some things that said that people thought they changed it to sort of like, oh, well, actually, it's an alien and it has feathers on its back, and looks like what they call a gray, so which is an alien. But apparently, they changed that after they figured out that the movie wasn't real, and these were like dingo type dogs. And so I got bad news for you, Rob. Chupacabras aren't real.
Did you see the stuffed dog that the lady farmer had with the blue eyes?
Yes, I saw that.
So that they're saying that that's what it is.
Yep. They're saying that's what it is. It's just a dog. And that the dog has mange. I don't know if do you guys have mange up there? Because down here we have this. Okay, so the dogs have mange, so therefore they look patchy. They don't have hair, and if they do have hair, it's patchy. Their skin is real rough and red or gray or dark and scab looking kind of thing. Yeah, it's just a sick dog.
That's a shame.
I know. So I was bummed about that. I don't know why. I don't want to run into a Chupacabra, but I don't know. I feel sad for those dogs now because so many of them have been killed to show that there's proof of a Chupacabra. And no, Puerto Rico was just going through having a minute. They were just having a minute. So that's it. That's the Chupacabra story.
But it just shows you how the media can get people to believe almost anything.
Yeah, I think that was one of those mass scare things that if enough people believe and say that something is true and real and happening, that many, many more people will also say, oh, it's true, it's happening. And it's not. So, I hate to say this, but fake news.
Well, can I while we're on the subject of animals, can I talk quickly about the one that we've got up here?
If you can say it really quickly, I'd like to hear you say that word really quickly. No, the dandy devil one.
Oh, you want me to, okay, here we go. I was hoping you'd forgot about that. The dandy devil dogs of Devon.
I love it.
Okie dokie, here we go. I live in Cornwall. Just up the road is Devon. It's probably the nicest part of the UK. Dando was a parson, which is like, do you know what a parson is?
No. Oh.
Like a minister.
Like a small. Oh yeah, like a parsonage is the minister's church.
Yeah.
I mean house.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
yes.
he was a holy man as such. But as far as records show, he was more, basically all he wanted to do was go out hunting with his friends. And he didn't want to help his parishioners or do service on a Sunday. He just wanted to go out and get drunk and hunt and do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So one Sunday he was out hunting with his friends, and they ran out of alcohol in their hip flasks. He was carrying little hip flasks, and they
Right.
were carrying, and they'd all run out of whatever it was that they were drinking. The estate where they were hunting on, this is a little bit complicated. The estate that they were hunting on was called the Earth Estate, like the planet Earth, but it was called the Earth Estate.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
so Dando, the parson, jokingly said, "We're on the Earth Estate now. I would gladly go to hell for a drink," which was not a very sort of minister type thing to say. As soon as he'd finished saying that, this black figure appeared and had two big black hunting dogs. And he said, "Would you like a drink?" So they all had a drink of this man's, whatever it was, and it was the most beautiful beer or spirit they'd ever tasted. And they were getting drunker and drunker and drunker. So this, all of a sudden, this black figure stole all their pheasants and whatever else he'd been hunting, and tried to make off with it all. So Dando chased after him, and he was never seen again, basically. They searched for him and searched for him and searched for him, and he was gone, disappeared. So they say that the legend is, if you go to this part of Devon on the moors where he was hunting, you will be able to hear on a quiet day, or if you spend the night there, you'll be able to hear his devil dogs howling and moaning and growling. And that is a legend.
I wonder, Dandy Devil Dogs of Devon.
Yeah.
I wonder, because I asked you, have you ever read the book The Hound of the Baskervilles?
When I was really, really young, which was a long time ago.
Well, I wonder if that could possibly be the basis for that. It was written by Arthur Conan Doyle. It's a Sherlock Holmes book, and it's about, obviously, the Hounds of Baskerville. It's about a huge, dark, black dog that is terrorizing people on the moor and killing people. And I wonder if that could have been a basis in his idea, in his back of his brain, about using that legend.
Well, when we talked about it this morning, I was wondering whether it could have anything to do with the werewolf legend as well.
No, yeah.
Because
well, in the Hound of the Baskervilles, they think that that could be a werewolf. So I do think that there could be connections to that as far as legends go. Why didn't we do werewolves? That would be fun.
Well, I looked at where it's really, really like I did vampires, and you can sort of look into the history of vampires, and you can get some information. It's really, really difficult to find out where werewolves came from, and what was the original sort of story behind them. There isn't really one.
Right. Oh,
really,
okay.
really,
There's no original. Didn't originate anywhere.
well, I can't find one. I know you've got the skinwalkers over in America. I'm wondering if that was maybe brought over to America with the settlers, and it the beast dogs of Devon and the werewolf thing has been taken over to America, and it's being turned into like the skinwalkers, and you don't know, do you, where all these things originate? But it's really, really difficult to sort of find anything out about werewolves. Well, I found it quite difficult.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, by the way, people in the chat are wanting you to do your Beast of Bodmin. So I told them that that's coming up. I am going to do one real quick about what was I going to do? Oh, Bloody Mary. No, the Vanishing Hitchhiker. Okay, so this is a short one. This is one that is very common in the United States. It's one that you're going to hear at, like, again, at slumber parties, sitting around a campfire, and it all has the same basic theme, little different variations, but someone's driving down a dark, deserted road. They see, usually it's a woman, sometimes it's a child, occasionally it's a man, but it's usually a woman on the side of the road, hitchhiking or just walking. The driver pulls over and picks up the person, and they say that, their car broke down, or really common is to say that their boyfriend kicked them out of the car, and they really have to get to this certain destination, and the driver of the car so happens to be going to that destination. And so they ride with the driver, and the driver has a conversation with them. I did a story covering this about the disappearing hitchhiker. Anyway, and it takes a while. It takes half an hour to get to where they're going. So it's a decent long conversation. And as soon as the driver pulls up to where this person needs to go, they get out of the car sometimes to go open the door for her, or they just put the car in park and they look over and there's nobody there. There never was anybody there. They usually find out that there had been a bad car accident, and that is the description of the woman, child, or man who died in the car. And I don't know why that one, there is no origin for that story. It's just always been told. It's been told back as long as somebody in a carriage picked them up. But I think it's just, I think maybe it's one of those don't pick up hitchhikers stories, like a warning story. Maybe those ones that are told around campfires and stuff are warning stories. Be afraid of strangers. Don't make out in cars. You'll be safe. But it's one of my favorite ones. It's very common, and I really like it. And that is the end of that one.
Can I just... Did you get a program on them? You must have done, called Haunted Highway, and it had Jack Osborne in it.
Oh, what's funny is Jory has seen it. I love Jack Osborne. I love him and Ozzy have a show right now where they go out to historical places, but I never saw Haunted Highway.
It's really good, and it's got a girl out of. She used to be in Fact or Faked. Jael, I think her name is. She was with him. Anyway, they would go driving down this road this night, and this stretch of road was really famous for the hitchhikers and blah 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 and certain things happening. So they fitted GoPro cameras all around the car and inside the car. Okay. And it was the middle of the night, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they were driving down the road really, really slowly. And there was someone stood at the side of the road. There was someone stood there. So he jammed his brakes on, and he jumps out the car, and this person had gone, had just disappeared. He checked the footage, and the guy, it's a man, I think. He's there. He stood there. Everybody saw him.
Really?
There was nowhere for him to go, and they couldn't believe it. They could not believe it. Did you say it was Jory who'd watched the program?
Yes, it was Jory.
Ask him if he remembers the one about the where they saw this guy stood at the side of the road.
I think he's crazy. In the chat right now. So, Jory, if you're in the chat, can you let us know if you saw that one, please? I'll let you know when he answers.
Okay.
That is creepy. Maybe it is. Maybe it is based on real experiences.
Mm, yeah, it's scary. It's, I mean, I would never pick up a hitchhiker anyway, but um, I some of our supermarkets are open 24 hours in in around here. There is a point to this, by the way. I'm not just telling me, not just going to tell you my shopping list.
Okay.
And I go a lot of the times I go over at night because I mean, obviously I'm in a wheelchair and it's difficult in the day when there's loads of people. So, and I go down the country lanes and I'm the only car there. It is scary. You know, you see a lot of weird stuff going on, and I wouldn't ever get
Yeah.
out of my car. I would never ever get out of my car, and I'm not really scared of anything much, but no, I
Huh.
definitely pick up an hitchhiker.
Well, I'm going to do one more before we do your Beast
Yeah,
of Bodmin Moor. Is that okay?
yeah.
And this one is pretty quick, and it is. Oh, by the way, Jory says, I don't recall that episode, but Ghost Adventures did something similar, and they caught something very interesting too.
Do you know? He might be right. I might be wrong. It might have been Ghost Adventures because it
Okay.
just rung a big bell to me. It might. It's one of the two.
Okay. Well, that's creepy. Okay, so I'm going to do Bloody Mary. Do you have something like Bloody Mary in your country where you do? You
Yeah.
have to because it. Okay, I was going to say because believe it started. I think it started in the UK, but I can't be sure. But what it is okay. So back in the 20th century, earliest 20th century, things were coming into popularity like um, paranormal things, doing the Ouija boards, having your palm read. They would have people come to parties. They would have seance parties. And one of the spell like things that they would do, and this is where it originated, was that they would have a single woman look into a mirror in a darkened room, and it would they would say that the woman would see her future husband in the mirror. So that's how it originated in those parlor rooms of the rich people who were into newly becoming into the paranormal and having parties about that. But then it kind of moved on to modern day where you at some parties, it's mostly girls that do this, I would say, and they send someone into the bathroom. They make you turn around 3 times and say Bloody Mary. I would never, ever, never, ever do this. I would never do this. This was not something I would do. But it's so, so, so common. And then you would see Bloody Mary in the mirror, and there's things from people would die afterwards when they saw it, or Bloody Mary would haunt them afterwards. That's often sometimes it's seen as a whole group seeing Bloody Mary in the mirror. And this is what's really interesting to me is that there is an actual scientific reason that this does happen. And so they did the study at this university, and because it's so common and so many people claim that they have seen a face in the mirror, they did the study, and they found that these people doing the study would see faces in the mirror. So what they decided and documented was that there's something called a dissociative identity effect, and you can actually have a dissociative identity disorder where you don't feel like you are yourself. And do you remember that time I told you about the antibiotic I had a really bad reaction to, Rob?
Yeah.
Okay, well that whole story is that this associative thing was one of the side effects of that antibiotic if you're allergic to it. But they said that if you look into the mirror long enough, it causes the brain's facial recognition system to begin to misfire. They don't understand why. But you will see another person's face perceived in the mirror, which could actually be yours, but it will look distorted because looking at yourself in the mirror for that long in the dark causes your brain to have this disassociative thing happen. And it does become real that you are seeing this distorted, scary face in the mirror. And I loved that I found an urban legend that turns out that if you do it, you will see something in the mirror if you stare long enough, because your brain misfires, and that's what happens. So I won't be doing it anytime soon. But if you want to do it, we'll stay here and wait.
I'm not doing it. We don't advise anyone to do it either.
No, I wouldn't do it if I were you. I wouldn't do it. But there's a lot of people who have done these at slumber parties. And now I'm glad I didn't do it, because if I had seen something in the mirror, I think that would have been not good. So I just find that fascinating that they actually ended up doing a scientific study on this and finding that, yes, you will see Bloody Mary in the mirror. Scary.
I have enough time looking at myself in the mirror.
Okay, so then you have your story, and then I have one more story, and then we're going to do one together, right?
Yeah. You asked me about the Bloody Mary over here. Ours is slightly different.
Oh.
Ours is you see a really beautiful young lady, young woman, and she changes into an old hag. And if you see her, you know that someone's going to die, or you're going to die. But
yes, well, that is sort of what we see too. You look in the mirror, and it turns into a disfigured face, a scary face, and I don't know if it's an old hag, but and that they do say that means someone's going to die. If you see it, someone's going to die, or you're going to die, or you're going to be haunted. So
yeah,
and yeah, I'll skip it. I'm going to take a hard pass on staring at the mirror.
That's what did me Bodmin Moore story.
Yes, I'm excited to hear this one about the Moor.
Okay, if you're in the UK, you'll know where Bodmin Moor is. But if you're not in the UK, and you can look at if you get a Google Earth and just put in Bodmin Moor, it'll show you it. It's basically, there's nothing there. There's just a main road that runs straight over the top, which happens to be the road that I used to take my daughters to school and when I come back here. This is very personal to me, because I have actually come to the point of view that I've had this experience. People for years and years and years have seen, and there is photographic evidence, which you can look up on Google, of a huge black panther type animal cat. It is massive. Now, there's been lots and lots of different theories to what this is. Some people have said that it's escaped from the zoo, because there is a zoo not a million miles away. But I think that if you were a zookeeper and you go in one morning and there is a effing great cat missing, you might know about it. But
I would think so.
You would expect that there would have, and no cats have ever been reported missing. Mm-hmm. I was coming home from, dropping my daughters off, and I was going down a country lane, and something jumped out in front of my car. At first, I thought it was a big black sheep. Sometimes we have a lot of black sheep up here,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't a sheep. It turned and it looked at me, and my headlights lit up its eyes, and it was it was big, and it just bound up the side of the thing and over the fence in sort of one go, which was amazing. And I literally shit myself. It was, sorry to swear, it was really, really exciting, but really, really scary at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't really heard very much about this beast of Bodmin Moor until obviously after this experience. I really, really looked into it, but I didn't really know anything about it. We were new to we were new. I was new to living in this area. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And go to go on the internet and look it up and look at these pictures of this huge and the huge cat. They've filmed a lot of the pictures that have been taken of it. They're from quite far away, but there's one picture, and it's in a field full of sheep. Now, sheep are quite big, fully grown sheep. You know, they're not small, especially if they haven't been sheared. They can look quite big, can't they? This panther type beast thing was in the field, and it was bigger than them by. It was like twice the size of them. So we went to the zoo a couple of last year, and we looked at a tiger, because I remember telling my daughters about the tigers and how big they were, and they didn't believe me. They thought I was exaggerating how big they were, and then we saw a tiger, and they were so shocked to see how big this tiger was. And this thing was bigger than a tiger. Now, as far as I know, black panthers don't grow bigger than tigers. I could be wrong, but I don't think they do. And that's my experience. And I stand by that with anyone. I would take a lie detector test or anything. I saw this thing. Are you still there? Tracy? What happened? Tracy? Tracy?
I got it. I got it. Sorry. Something was wrong with my mic. I'm sorry. Um, uh,
Did you hear
so for
that?
those of you, yeah, I heard it. I just don't know what happened. My mic, I don't know what happened to it. So what I wonder is, for those of you who are from the UK that are listening to this, have you ever had an experience like that? And if so, go ahead and let us know. That would scare me pretty bad. You know, what's interesting about that is in the Appalachian Mountains, they have, which is the United States, they have folklore about a huge black panther in the Appalachian Mountains that roams through there and can kill people. And they have a lot of sightings with that too. Isn't that strange? And there's no panthers here. Black panthers aren't, local. They're not, they would have to escape from a zoo. So, and like in that same story, when I was looking up stuff about the Appalachian Mountains, they were saying that, there was no reported animals missing from a zoo, or sometimes people will keep wild animals and then release them into the wild illegally. But this particular story has been going on for so long that the original animal would have died, and there weren't two. And so that's interesting that we also in this country have a story about the huge black panther.
It's crazy, crazy. I mean, I was telling you this morning, I was taking my daughters for a day out, and we were going to this farm that's maybe 10 miles away, but it's in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's got sheep and playthings for the kids and bunny rabbits and stuff like that for them. And it was the first time that we'd ever been to this place, even though it's close to home. And I was struggling to find it, and I got a little bit lost. And if my girls were here now, they would vouch for me. We pulled between two houses, and this cat jumped up on the top of this fence, and it looked like a small tiger. It was so much bigger than a cat, than a normal domesticated cat. Well, you said you had cats before, didn't you?
Yes.
But this thing had massive paws, and it had the pattern of a tiger, and one of my girls said, "Daddy, what's that?" And I was like, "Oh my God!"
Wait, it had the pattern of a tiger?
It looked like a tiger. It looked similar, like a tiger. But do you know, like when you see tiger cubs, they're not as bright, are they, as a fully grown tiger?
Right.
It was more. It was duller. It was sort of duller, the colours on it. Whatever it wasn't fully grown. It was still small, but it was a good twice the size of a normal cat.
Wow. That's weird. And your girl saw it.
Yeah, you can ask next time you speak to Grace, ask her about going to New Hay Farm and the big cat we saw, and she'll tell you the same story.
Okay, I will. That is weird. Okay, I'm going to talk about the Mothman, which is famous on the East Coast here. And here we go. On November 12th, in 1966, 5 men were digging a grave at a cemetery in West Virginia. They claimed to see a moth-like figure fly low from the trees over their heads, and this is often identified as the very first sighting of what would become known as the Mothman. Shortly thereafter, on November 15th, 2 young couples, so 4 people, told police that they saw a gray creature whose eyes glowed red when the car's headlights picked it up. They described it as a large flying man with 10-foot wings, following their car while they were driving in an area outside of a town. During the next few days, a lot of other people called in and said they had the same reporting of this large creature, 10-foot wingspan, and so the police obviously looked into it. Well, the explanation by the police department and by a zoologist was that what they were seeing was a large heron, which he called a this is funny, he called it a shite poke. And he told them that he had seen one of those police officers said that he had seen one, and he had flashed his flashlight on it, and this bird's eyes looked like a bicycle reflector. And so they came to the conclusion that what had happened was that this large crane, this shite poke, which is almost as tall as a man, it's that tall, this crane, has a 7-foot wide wingspan and has red circles around its eyes, that this is what the people were seeing, because and they wouldn't recognize it because it's not local to the area. They said that it must have gotten lost on its flight path and ended up in this area, because really the only sightings of this Mothman happened during this time. And then during this time, a bridge collapsed, and it was blamed on the Mothman. And there's a very famous picture of this bridge collapsing with a tiny, you can see a tiny picture on the top left-hand side of this picture, which looks like a large flying creature. But like I said, apparently they think that it was this heron that had accidentally got lost. The thing is that I have had the experience of driving in a wooded area and having an owl that I would have sworn was the Mothman if I had lived in this area. An owl swooped down on our truck's windshield. Its wings covered the entire windshield of our vehicle. And then it, flew up over. It was that huge. So imagine seeing a bird the size of a human whose eyes glow red. I can see why people would think why this urban legend started. Because if you're not used to seeing this bird, and who would be? I don't even if I lived where they came from, I think that would still scare the crap out of me. I think it might even be a shite poke. But I think it's really interesting that happened. And now a lot of people because they had it explained, a lot of people, they have a statue in this town that's the Mothman. You can look it up on the internet. They have this whole statue. They actually have, which is, I think is funny, because in 2002, they erected this 12-foot tall metallic statue of the Mothman. And it was unveiled in 2003. And now they have a weekend-long pancake festival to honor this monster. And it comes with guest speakers and singers and vendors and like a pancake festival. And, you're not a real monster until you have a pancake festival, I think.
Pancake
that,
festival?
yeah, they get together, they celebrate this creature, and they eat pancakes. So, you're real scary by then if you can have a pancake festival named after you. But there's a famous movie, and I don't know, you like scary movies, so you might have seen the Mothman movie. I think what's it called, Jeremy? The Mothman Diaries? There's a book called The Mothman Diaries. Anyway, I saw the Mothman movie, and it's supposed to be scary, but it wasn't scary. It was pretty ridiculous, really, but that is a super famous legend from the East Coast.
Do you know the Jeepers Creepers films?
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be something to do with, or maybe something to do with the Mothman?
I think it was. Yeah. Go ahead.
That was sort of the Mothman type thing.
Yeah, I think that they took the Mothman legend and integrated it into the Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
And Andy, who's one of my longest subscribers, says that Mothman loves pancakes. and clearly he does. And singers and a whole weekend of a party. So I'm going to say I'm not that afraid of the Mothman. I am really disappointed in the urban legends I've looked up. They're letting me down. No Chupacabra. Please. Now, what we're going to do together is we're going to talk about the Mandela effect, which is obviously a very recent occurrence as far as urban legends and folklore goes, right? So I'm going to right now look up some Mandela pictures, and we're going to talk about.
Do you want me to do a little bit of history about it, or do you want to do that?
Yeah, I'd love for you to do a little history about it while I'm looking up some pictures.
Okie dokie. In 2010, the phenomenon, I can't say that bloody word, the phenomena of collective false memory was dubbed the Mandela effect by a paranormal investigator stroke journalist called Fiona Broom, in reference to everybody was having false memories about. The first main one was Nelson Mandela. Now, I remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. But according to everybody else in the world, and me and for me and Fiona Broom believe that Nelson Mandela died in prison. Everybody else believes that he lived he got released from jail and he lived happily ever after until he died in, I think, 2002 or 2003, which is, well, I don't remember that.
Sorry. Okay. I remember I told you I wanted to tell you something about Mandela. I remember him dying when he died. I am one of those people who knows when he died. I didn't believe that he died in jail because I remember him getting out. I remember him, his wife, and then they got divorced, and and then years after that, he died. So apparently I live in a different reality than you.
Well, I remember Winnie Mandela giving a speech. His wife was called Winnie, weren't she?
Yes.
Giving a speech that he had died in prison. But before we go on to the different sort of things that we remember, the things that we remember differently, I read something today that is really, really good. And can I just read this out?
Yeah.
And I'll use me and you as an example.
Okay.
Both me and you are remembering correctly. The difference is one group lived in one reality and one group in another. In each case, reality is fluid. Which reality do you live in? So basically what that means is we are all we remember things that are right, that's happened, but we can switch between realities. We can live in one reality one day and then another reality the next day. And it's nothing really other than the fact, I think Nelson Mandela is the biggest one, really, that to do with the Mandela effect. But I think that is quite scary. If you think about that couple of paragraphs, we are remembering correctly, but the difference is we are switching between realities. Does that make? What do you think of that, Jason?
Yeah, I think that it's so strange that so many people can have a memory of whether it's a box of Fruit Loops or a children's book, the name of a children's book. So many people can have such a, like, I would swear on a Bible that this children's book was the, Berenstain Bears or whatever it is. And you find out that it was never called that. But so millions of people believe and know that that was what the name of it was. That was what it was called. That's how this particular logo looked. So I think there's something weird about it. We're not all remembering. Millions of people cannot be remembering these things wrong, right?
Did you get those pictures that I messaged you today?
Yeah, Jeremy did.
And I was so shocked at the Ford cars, the Ford sign, and the Volkswagen sign. And do you also remember? Do you remember the Tenement Square tank boy?
Yes.
Now I remember him getting ran over by the tank.
Yes, I do too.
But he didn't. That didn't happen. According to the media, that did not happen. I remember the blood. I can still in my mind can see him getting ran over and the blood on the floor on the road.
I can too.
But if you look it up after this, he didn't. That didn't happen. He stopped. The tank stopped and didn't move.
I don't see. I don't understand that. Yeah, that is really frustrating. How is that possible? that we can remember it like that.
Well, if it's true, I mean, if it is to do with switching realities, it blows everything out of the water in my mind. Everything we believe is just false. We need
Right.
to, well, not false, but we've all got our own. We've all got our own take on history. I mean, I watched a couple of videos today on YouTube about it, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of the people were saying, it's like even silly things like Kit Kat. I
Right.
remember Kit Kat being one word,
Yes, I do too.
and but on what I wanted, that was one of the pictures that I sent. It's got a little dash in between Kit Kat,
Right.
Looney Tunes.
Yes.
It's one of those things you start digging and it just gets worse and
What do
worse.
you remember Looney Tunes as?
I remember it as as like tune, Tunes,
That's what I remember it as too.
but a lot of people remember it as tunes, Toons. I think that's right. Yeah,
Okay, and when you were growing up, did you was it the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstein Bears?
I think that's an American thing because I
Oh, is
can't
it?
remember that. Well,
Because I can tell you for 100%, I would stand on a witness stand and say they are the Berenstein Bears. And there's examples of old TV guides and old listings of where it's written Bernstein. And a lot of people say that it was Berenstain Bears,
yeah,
which doesn't even that's wrong. Okay, it might be their reality, but it's so many more of us remember the Berenstain Bears. So that is such a classic Mandela effect that I had to talk about the Berenstain Bears because it's so bizarre. And I found a couple that are lesser known, but still pretty bizarre. Like, for example, um, hold on a second. Oh, so in Star Wars, everybody who quotes Star Wars, there's one quote that everybody knows is Luke, I am your father.
I'm your
That
father.
never that never happened.
Yeah,
He only said, no, I am your father. And I've rewatched it and I see it. He says, no, I'm your father. But everybody who quotes, everybody says, Luke, I am your father. So where'd that come from?
crazy. It's just I think it's scary because I feel like it's someone's trying to play with someone's trying to mess with my head, and I don't like that. And
I know, I feel like that too. I'm going to talk about another one that's very uncommon. So let me ask you, have you seen the movie Risky Business
risky
with Tom
business.
Cruise? It's super famous. Tom Cruise,
Yeah,
he
long time ago.
slides out into the opening and he's dancing to, somebody help me. What's the name of this song? Old Time Rock and Roll. And I remember that he stood out. And would you guys in the chat, would you talk about this with me for a second? He slid out wearing a long white suit shirt and socks and wearing Ray-Ban sunglasses.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
But he didn't. In
What?
the movie, he didn't. In the movie, he's wearing a pink shirt, no sunglasses, and socks. Last Halloween, a friend of mine, also my hairdresser, she dressed up as Tom Cruise in that scene. She wore a long white shirt, socks, and a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses because it's that iconic. Everybody knows who you are if you walk into a Halloween party dressed like that. And no, that didn't happen.
I think that if you dig into this, it's one of those things that you get more questions than answers. I mean, is this what deja vu is? Is this deja vu? Is this part of...
Yeah, like the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
Like somebody goes in and changes something.
Yeah.
So, okay, so everybody knows the song We Are the Champions, right? By Queen.
Yeah.
It says,
Yeah.
We are the champions, we are the champions, we are the champions of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it doesn't. There is no of the world in the song. I've heard that with my own 2 ears. You cannot tell me that it doesn't say, we are the champions of the world.
Yeah, because he sings it slightly lower, doesn't he?
Yes, he goes, of the world. Sorry about that, guys. But yes, he does. And they said, and it's not in there.
I don't know what to say.
How is that possible? How does everybody in every car, because everybody, you can't help it. If this song comes on in your car, you know it, if you're listening to me, that you sing that song. And everybody sings of the world.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do after the podcast is I'm going to put it on YouTube and say,
okay, you do that and you message me, or you leave a message below on that when the video comes up, and tell me what you think.
I can't believe that. Do you have Febreze in America?
Yes, and I have, the one that says it's wrong, the one that they say doesn't exist. I have that in my living room right this minute. The one on the okay. Do you see the picture? Are you looking at the picture?
No, because I'm just on the podcast, I'm just on Skype, so I can't see anything.
Okay.
Till later.
Okay, well, the picture that you used that has one on the right that says never existed and one on the left that says current timeline. Maya, can you bring me that Febreze that's in the entryway? Hold on a second. I'm going to show this because I'm in a reality where the one that they said has never existed, I believe I own it. Hold on a second. Maya, turn it. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to take a picture of it. And I'll send it to Jeremy, and I'll have Jeremy put it on, okay?
So how's your spell?
Wait, Maya. Which one is this? It's okay. It's spelled Febreze. But also, okay, so I'm going to send the picture to Jeremy and have Jeremy put the bottle up. And I think, Jeremy, are you putting the picture up on the screen right now? Okay, so I'm going to send it to Jeremy, and I'm going to show you that I own the bottle that they never said existed, the design that they said never existed. So
it hasn't got 2 E's in it.
It has what? Okay, it says F. It is Febreze, but it used to have 2 E's in it. It used to be breeze.
Yeah, I remember it with. I remember it with 2 E's.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. But the bottle they're saying never. The bottle shape they're saying never existed. I have. Well, basically that bottle. It's sort of a combo between the 2 bottles, but it's mostly the bottle that they say never existed. So Jeremy's going to put that bottle up on the podcast. So when you go back later, Rob, you can see the podcast and see that I took a picture of Febreze for you guys. Because it's so funny because I was like, I'm pretty sure I own a bottle of Febreze around here somewhere. And I was walking through, we have what we call the entryway into our apartment, and the bottle was sitting there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do. I have the one that never existed. Take that. Don't tell me it didn't exist. I'll take a picture of that.
It's like the Volvo sign. I have had loads of Volvo. Well, I must have had about 3 or 4 Volvos when I was younger. It was my favourite car.
Really?
And they're saying now that it's got that little arrow sticking out of it. It hasn't.
No, I didn't.
I used to valet cars years ago, and I used to be really anal about how clean my car was. I have cleaned them cars so many times. I know it did not have that stupid little arrow sticking out. It just doesn't even look like Volvo anymore.
No, that's one of those like male female signs, right? That's what it looks like. The kind that they say always existed. Yeah, I think we would have noticed if it was one of the male female signs. By the way, the picture of my Febreze, that's up on we have Volvo and Febreze up on the screen right now. That never existed because people would have made comments about it looking like that. That Volvo sign. It didn't say that. Why would you do that? Why would you do the male female sign thing? That doesn't even make sense. Why would you put an arrow there? It makes no sense.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think that one ever existed. They have have you seen the Target one? Where they say which target is it? I think okay, they have 3 that they have, and the one I have doesn't tell you which one it's supposed to be. So I think that the target sign I know has a big round circle on the outside and a big round circle on the inside with a white in the middle of the circle. That's what I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I don't know if that's the right one or not. But like JC, oh, hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on a second. I might be able to pull up the Target one again. Okay. Oops, shoot. Hold on. I lost it.
It's almost as though someone's trying to play with our heads.
Yeah, it's very, very weird. Hold on. Okay, so Target in 1968 had the one I remember. How would I know that? I wouldn't see that.
No, I was born in 68 and I'm a lot older than you, so you wouldn't have.
It says Target in 1968, Target in 2000, Target in 2007. It says that it has a big round ring on the outside and a big solid red
ring in the middle.
In the middle. That's not true. Is it? Is that true? I don't feel like that's the one I've seen. Why don't I pay better attention to this? That's so weird. And did you see the JC Penney one?
I saw it on one of the videos I watched this morning. It doesn't make sense the way it is now.
How did you remember it?
Well, it's an American company, isn't it? So we didn't have them here. But I was listening to the guy this morning, and the way it just doesn't look right now, the way it is. Just what the other one was, that Captain Crunch cereal. We don't have that here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But he's saying that the way it's spelled now is Cap, then abbreviated N, Crunch, and that doesn't make sense. It used to say Captain, didn't it?
I actually remember it as Cap, and then N. I actually remember it that way. But I know a lot of people who say that they don't remember it that way.
Yeah.
So that's really weird because I remember it being Cap'n. It's Cap'n Crunch, which was not even a word. But I remember it that way. And also, have you seen the oh, hold on, there's one. Oh, Oscar Mayer. Did you guys have Oscar Mayer hot dogs?
No. But it was on that program this morning that I watched on YouTube.
Okay, well, there's a song that goes with it that I grew up singing. And what did he say was the correct one? Is it an A or an E? Because I used to sing, it's called My Baloney Has a First Name. It's Oscar. My bologna has a second name. It's Mayer.
Yeah,
And
MA. Because
okay, so
it
see,
spells something completely different, doesn't it? If you put that,
yeah,
if you take that A away and put an E in there, it doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't.
I just feel like I'm being messed about with, to be honest.
I know. And somebody like, okay, so Andy said maybe these corporations' logos have been changed sometime in the past, and we're just now seeing it. Which that could totally be true, and we're just going off these people's words that say that it wasn't. But I can tell you that that song says "of the world" at the end. There's no way that that changed. I mean, that's so weird. So, I mean, you could change the logos, I guess, and we could say, oh, well, I remember it being this way, and they could have changed it. That's likely. But you're not going to tell me that. I mean, I know that Luke, I am your father happened. Didn't it? Now I feel crazy.
Yeah, but I can understand what he's saying, and that could have happened with products. But when you're talking about things like that tank, the man getting killed by the tank, and Nelson Mandela,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
is that.
That's something you can't change. A corporation is not changing.
Yeah.
And when you see a little boy get hit by a tank, that's something you don't forget. That's and then all of a sudden they're saying that didn't happen. Yeah, I saw it. It's something I don't forget. And then apparently there's a comment that says none of the companies have confirmed that they have changed their logos. So I guess they're saying they're not going to say that they have changed their logos. So
Well, excuse me, Tracy. We have had, I can't remember what it was now. There's been a couple of things in this country, and they have said on the adverts, I think it was Flash or something, we are changing the name of such a thing to such a thing, but it will still be the
yeah,
same product. You know, you don't have to
yeah,
worry, it's called this now. And
yes,
they tell you, because obviously they don't want to lose business, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is money.
right,
So we have been told in advance, you know, these companies are big companies, they're not just going to change their name and just hope that
yeah.
you. And I'm sorry if I'm
Well,
disagreeing with someone who's commenting. I don't mean to disagree with you,
no,
but
no,
I think you need to just
but
think
no, that
about
was
the
just a
fact that,
suggestion.
yeah, you've got to think about companies wouldn't take that wouldn't take that chance.
Well, I've gone to the store lots and lots of times. Shampoos, all the time. They'll say new design, same product.
Yeah,
Um, new design, still your favorite product. Whatever. It's always or different design, still your favorite product. Um, so they always. I mean, I've never gone to the store and said, when did this start looking like that? There's always something down there that will say that it's a new design, but we're still the same. And
yeah.
I'm supposed to tell you, dude, no offense taken. Please keep doing what you're doing. So
Thank you.
you didn't offend anybody. So we are at 2.5 hours, Rob. I
Yeah, no, I
suppose
just
we
noticed that.
should maybe wrap this up. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Okay. I've had a really, really good time. I hope you have.
I have, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to us
I hope so
so
too.
long.
And like I said, you guys go ahead and leave comments. If anybody ever has any questions, go ahead and leave those. This podcast will come up as a video in 1 to 2 hours. And he says, no, don't go. Um, and you can continue to leave comments. Again, I want to tell you that we might be switching to Twitch next week. And Jeremy, can you tell me, will I have to announce on my YouTube channel that we're going to Twitch and give a link for them to go to? Is that how that will work? Oh, okay, and then so if you guys will come to my YouTube channel, follow the link to Twitch, And we'll head over there, and Jeremy will be able to do a lot more stuff with the producing end of the video. And then, of course, the video will be uploaded to YouTube as well. But I'd like it if you guys would follow us over so we can, have a conversation with you, because it's really fun to see you guys talking in the chat. And my next week's host will be Jory. And also, I do have a Patreon account. There is no pressure for donating to the Patreon account. And I'll explain it for anybody who's new and doesn't know this, that Facebook's new algorithms catch everything in a net, and they don't really, there's no real sense in what they catch. So sometimes if I was to use a thumbnail that might have a description that says knife in it, they could catch what the thumbnail says and demonetize my videos. Every missing persons case that I ever do is automatically demonetized. You can't speak about the news or put pictures up about protests or anything violent, and you are demonetized. So YouTube isn't paying even the largest content providers right now. And even though I hit my requirements to be added on as a partner and have ads, it's going to take a while before that happens, because they have to look into my whole account, and then they will decide if my content is able to be monetized or not. It's not automatic anymore. It's something they have to decide. So by heading over to Twitch, and that will help us with the production value and stuff. And if you guys ever want to donate to the Patreon account, that's completely up to you. My content will still be free. Don't have to worry about that. That is a completely different side issue. I'm just telling you that there is an account. And if you would, please subscribe to this account if you haven't already. Also, click that bell, because with the new algorithm, our subscribers are not being notified when we put our content up unless you guys have clicked that bell. And then, of course, when you do click the bell, you'll be notified of the podcast as well. And if you could give it a big thumbs up, I would really appreciate that too. And I want to thank Rob. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun. I really loved your topics. I think this was a really great podcast to do. We had a lot of action in the comments and a lot of interest in these topics. So thank you.
No problem. It was a pleasure.
And so in 2 weeks, Rob will be back, and I'm sure we'll have a really good topic to talk about, and that you guys will be interested in. And I guess we will say goodnight.
Yep.
So good night, everyone.
One last thing.
Of course you can.
If you know anybody who would like this kind of thing, or any creepypasta or scary stories, and they're not a subscriber to Exit Light's YouTube channel, please tell them, because the videos are brilliant and they're unique, and I think that you will really, really like them. So if you have got any friends, tell them about her YouTube channel, please, for me.
And also, Rob has a Facebook channel, and it's about the paranormal and the supernatural. And I have a Facebook channel. We will put the links up to that. Rob's is so excellent, and he does a lot of work on mine. He puts so many different topics up that if you guys like paranormal and supernatural things, you are going to really dig in deep into Rob's channel. He's such an amazing content provider that if you want to go over there and please subscribe, that would be awesome. And I think you'll really, really enjoy it. So thank you for that compliment, Rob. I really appreciate it.
No, it's true. It's true.
Thank you.
Anyway, good night to everybody. Or good morning.
Good night. Yes, however it is for you, good night. And thank you so much for coming. And thank you again, Rob. This has been a lot of fun.
No problem. Take care.
All right. Good night. Bye-bye.